fighter jets. Right? Fighter jets are pretty important. They're very expensive. Fighter jets, like they cost a lot of money and they take a long time to build. We don't have an unlimited supply of them, but what we do have is an unlimited supply of WEI people in leadership, white, entitled, and incompetent people who are only in these positions because they are white and they are entitled. And it just so happens they also happen to be incompetent. What we learned yesterday was that not JD Vance, Pete, his old mama say he's trash Hegseth, who, as I will remind you, has been credibly accused of having a number of issues with alcoholism and addiction. And he promised all of us that if he got this job, he was going to stop drinking. And in the first couple of press conferences he'd appeared at, both here and internationally, he was sipping on a cup of water, but it was like a little quick sip. Like, don't nobody drink water like that. What's in that cup? Like, we drink a cup of water, but he was like taking these little sips. Sorry for y'all in Urban View World where you're hearing the sound effects, but he was literally taking sips of water like it was sips of some other clear liquid that was not H2 or O. And that raises a lot of concerns for people because typically when someone who's dealing with addiction says, if you give me this thing that I really, really want, I promise to never give into my addiction again, that's usually a sign that, child, somebody gonna be giving into addiction again. This is not shade to people who are battling with addiction. Many of us have addictive tendencies or practices or challenges that impact all of our lives. But child, when you are about to be in charge of the whole ass military, we need to know that you're not going to have a whole bunch of colleagues that come out the woodwork and say, dude, not only is he like a whole ass alcoholic, but he would come to work totally drunk and he would go on air. And sometimes we thought he was drunk and like he has a real problem with alcoholism. And of course, I'm using that voice because this wasn't black people saying it. This was his colleagues at Fox News because he was what? A Fox host, not a real Fox host, a Fox weekend host. Although I guess that's a little mean to say that you're not a real host if you're just on the weekends. But literally, when you consider his qualifications, he was a weekend host. And ho-ish, I suppose, considering he got 3 baby mamas, all of whom he encountered after he was cheating on a previous baby mama / wife. He literally slept his way to the top. And as we have discussed before, now if he was a woman, he had a pair of ovaries instead of a penis, we would be talking about him being the hoest asshole. However, white men get the benefit of patriarchy. So I guess he gets to hoe his way to the top and we don't have to worry about it. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning him today, in addition to the fact that I just love saying the name Pete, his own mama said he's trash Hegseth, which comes, for those of you who do not know, from the fact that his mama wrote him a whole ass letter that got leaked to the whole ass public about how terrible of a human being he was to the women in his life and how the women in his life did not deserve the evil treatment that he was giving him. So your mama say you trash, and she don't just tell you that you're trash, but she gonna put it in a whole ass letter with multiple paragraphs and multisyllabic words. Then friend, you are trash. You're trash. And so Pete, his own mama say he's trash Hegseth, is in the news again, not for allegations of drinking, which I suspect may be forthcoming, but we don't have proof of yet, but because as the person in charge of the military, why do planes keep sliding off the aircraft carriers? Can somebody please explain to me what is going on? Another F-18 Super Hornet fighter jet from the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier has been lost at sea, according to CNN. This is not the first aircraft that has been lost at sea. And I don't mean like the plane went up into the sky and then it crash landed into the ocean. I mean the plane rolled off the damn ship like it was led by a drunken alcoholic. And I don't know who was in the cockpit. I don't know anything about them. All I know is you lose not one, but 2 F-18. That's a problem. That is a problem. According to the report, it is not clear yet what happened as the investigation is ongoing. But 2 of the people involved said that there was some kind of a failure as the jet was trying to land. This is the second one. As the jet was trying to land on the carrier and the pilot and weapons systems officer had to eject. Now, the first plane rolled off the aircraft carrier. This one actually was trying to land, had people in it who had to physically remove themselves, propel themselves, eject themselves out of the aircraft so that they too do not land in the ocean. They had to be rescued. Well, that they did not land in the ocean inside the plane. They did land in the ocean. They had to be rescued by helicopter. Both of them, thank God, are alive, but they have suffered some injuries. So that is a problem. Now, the jet that went into the ocean ain't even been recovered yet. So we don't really know what happened. And considering what's going on in Yemen with the Houthis, who are like, what you ain't going to do is keep bombing Gaza the way you think you do. The Houthis just put out an announcement to all aircraft that fly in the region. They was like, listen, what you may think you're going to do is land at this airport in Israel. But if you do that, just know that you are risking our fire firepower. And then the Americans and the Israelis have been bombing the hell out of the Houthis for quite some time right now. But them Houthis is like, what you got, son? We is about that life. So bring it if you can. So there's a lot going on there right now. But they literally put out a warning. It was like, don't be in this airspace. It's going to be problems for you if you're in this airspace. Don't be in this airspace. So again, the challenge with this airplane crashing into the ocean is that it is not the first one that has crashed into the ocean under the leadership of Pete, his own mama say he's trash, Hegseth. The loss of this fighter jet, according to CNN, comes 1 week, just a week after another F-18 jet fell overboard the Truman. That time, initial reports indicated that the Truman made a hard turn to evade Houthi fire, which contributed to the fighter jet falling overboard. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever gone to like an air and space museum, or a ship museum where like the military, the Navy, these different museums will have. So blah, blah, blah. These different museums that provide you an opportunity to like tour the ship or tour the inside of an aircraft carrier, or to tour a helicopter. Them ships are big. And you mean to tell me that in all of your planning and building of the ship, you didn't contemplate the fact that you was going to have to serve or turn really, really hard, and then the plane might fall off. Ain't nobody had it wasn't tied down. Like if I got to take a hard right turn, I usually have on a seatbelt because I'm tying myself down into the car. What was happening? What is going on? Who is in charge? Oh, Peter's own mama said he's trash Hegseth. That is $140 million in fighter jets destroyed in just a week. $140 million of fighter jets. Now, I don't recall seeing this listed in Doge. I don't recall seeing this listed in the Doge list of accomplishments and savings. And speaking of Doge, Elongated Muskrat has made his way out. And I know a lot of media is talking about the fact that this has been a very disappointing departure for Elongated Muskrat. And he really was going to be a part of the governing apparatus for a much longer time. But because he had to pay attention to what's happening at Tesla, he sadly had to depart. Child, don't fall for the okie doke. Elongated Muskrat and them Doji Boy minions, the flying monkey boys of the Confederacy, they have gone through every single one of the agencies that they cared about. They have planted all of their data gathering codes and spyware, malware that most of us know nothing about. He don't have to be at Doji office no more. He ain't got to be at the White House no more. He getting all of that downloaded into his metaphoric computer. So I don't know why people are acting like Elongated Muskrat leaving the government has been some heartbreaking venture for him, because he got everything that he needed. Like, why would he stay? He got everything that he needed. However, the challenge that a lot of you all are going to be facing is that you're not going to have everything that you need. And by you, I mean we, I mean us. Mattel has decided that they are going to enter the chat. They've got some conversations. Mattel is one of the largest toy makers in the country. And this is interesting because Donald Trump and the rest of them have been talking about the fact that you don't need toys. You don't need toys. Your kids don't need toys. They don't need 250 pencils. They only need 5. Now, I don't know how many of you was walking around with 250 pencils in your backpack, but according to Donald Trump, your kids don't need all them pencils. They only need 5 pencils. And I don't recall him talking about on the campaign trail about the fact that Americans were going to have to be trained in what it meant to have austerity. Like, I don't recall him talking about the fact that your kids wasn't going to have no toys, that it wasn't going to have no programs or no food or no nothing. But that is literally what's happening. And now Mattel, the CEO of Mattel, one of the largest toy makers in the country, is saying that toy manufacturing will not be coming to America, but price hikes will. Because remember, the only reason that orange Mussolini put these tariffs in place in the first place, what he said was he wants to drive up tariffs, which means he's going to make it more expensive for us to buy things that are made outside the country, because he wants to use that as a cudgel to force corporations and manufacturing to come back to these United States. But anybody who has ever read anything worth anything on economics will said something along the lines of, well, but if you bring manufacturing back to the United States, you're going to have to pay the United States minimum wage dollars. Now, most of us can't live on $15 an hour, even though we be fighting for 15 because it's better than the $7.25 that is the current federal minimum wage. But even though we can't survive on $15 an hour, I want you to imagine trying to survive on $2 in this country. Imagine surviving on $2 an hour. You see how difficult that feels to you? Yes, that is what would happen, or that's what the scenario would be if they bring manufacturing back home. They're not going to be able to pay you $2 an hour unless Donald Trump and the Republicans are successful at rolling back all of our labor protections, in which case we have to have a renewal of the fight for unions. But that's a conversation for another day. What that would mean is that Mattel, and let me not even say Mattel because I don't know where their manufacturing is. Actually, I do know that Barbie is manufactured in China, but that would mean that instead of paying prices that are appropriate for other countries, Mattel would have to pay workers in this country $15 an hour minimum. depending on what state they're in. And what they basically said is, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The CEO, Jan Kreitz, told CNBC that he does not foresee toy manufacturing coming to America. Instead, however, what he does see is that the company expects to raise prices in the U.S. to offset President Donald Trump's 145% tariff on Chinese imports. According to the report, CNBC, by the end of the year, by the end of 2025, less than 40% of their products will be sourced from China, which is a goal that they've been working on. So they're going to be moving their production from China. But here's the thing about American capitalism. Once corporations have been able to raise prices, then prices ain't coming back down, baby. We know this, right? Like we know that once them prices are raised, the prices will not be coming down. Like how when COVID prices went up and then people said, well, it's because of the pandemic. It's because of COVID. Them prices ain't come back down. Them prices did not come back down. And so that's what is going to happen. The prices are going to go up and they're going to stay up. And this is a problem because your bank accounts cannot keep up. Because once those prices go up to contemplate that 145% tariff coming out of China, do you really think that Mattel or companies similarly situated are going to move their corporations and their manufacturing to other nations that are not subjected to 145% tariff, but then they're going to lower the price to account for the lower tariff? Child, please, that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. So we're in a situation right now where corporations are like, listen, do what you want to do as it pertains to who you're going to believe and who you're going to listen to. But what we going to do, we going to plan for the future. And the future says y'all going to have higher prices. And so when you see someone like a press secretary, KKK Caroline, when she's up there in the Oval Office, not the Oval Office, in the White House press briefing room, talking about the fact that Americans are going to have to learn how to have collective struggle. Americans are going to have to learn how to just be all in for each other. Child, let me tell you something. What we saw during COVID makes it clear that Americans don't know nothing about no collective struggle, particularly the white ones. The black ones, now we don't have to collectively struggle because that's the only way we get to make it through. But what we are crystal clear about is that Americans do a lot of things. Collectively struggle ain't one of them. But what the Republicans are now saying is that you're going to have to just do without your healthcare. You're going to have to do without your toys. You're not going to need a microwave. You don't need to upgrade. You should just deal with it. And when asked what he would tell young girls who couldn't get dolls that they wanted, and why we're talking about the economy in terms of dolls and girls is really infuriating to me, as if little boys don't play with toys and then them Tonka trunks ain't going to be a whole lot more expensive. And as if to say little girls only play with dolls, child, please. But what they are talking about, Scott Bessent, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, who knows some things about money. What did he say? They asked him, what would you tell a young girl who is very sad that she is not going to be able to have another doll? He says, I would tell that young girl that her life is going to be better than her parents. I would tell that young girl that it's okay that she can't have the things that she wants right now because she is going to have a better standard of living than her parents. I want you to tell little Jenica, tell little Jessie, tell little Tabitha, tell little Becky that you're not going to get a doll today because you're going to have a better quality of life than mommy and daddy. And it's going to be fine. I want you to tell that to them, Scott Bessent. This is how I know you don't know no poor people. The rich people be telling on themselves. Y'all be acting like y'all know poor people. Y'all don't know no poor people. Y'all don't know no poor people. And you don't know poor Americans. Americans who are not really good at sharing the suffering of the nation. And so when these good red-blooded white Christian nationalist Americans find out that little Jenny and little Tyler are not going to be able to get their Tonka trucks and their Barbies, dog, they're going to be upset. And upset is what we're seeing. This is one of the reasons why it's not just the righteous white just showing up at these town halls, child. You got whole ass Republicans in MAGA hats, MAGA t-shirts, showing up at the town halls talking about they upset with the government. We just heard Imani Gandhi talk about Chuck Grassley, all these Republicans facing these town hall, angry people at these town halls. Mike Lawler here in New York, y'all could have had CD17. Y'all could have had Mondaire Jones, who, yes, is problematic. But is his last name Jones? Or did I just make that up? I mean, could you please look up what Mondaire's, the candidate who was running against Mike Lawler in New York's 17th congressional district? Y'all ended up voting for Mike Lawler, who you should not have been voting for. Even though, again, Mondaire, he got some problems. He got some issues. He was funded by some entities that I think were problematic. Howsoever, you got Mike Lawler hauling out old-ass Jewish women from the town halls where you got to sign up and be screened and approved before you can even get in. So, child, the whites are upset. They are upset, and it's going to get even worse because, Christmas is coming, and all the corporations that plan on having a productive Christmas, them orders got to be in by June. Mondaire Jones, thank you, Amina. I was correct. And yeah, like I said, the man was problematic. Good brother, problematic with who he was getting funded by, but y'all could have had him. Instead, you got Mike Lawler, who was hauling out old Jewish white women from the town hall because he don't like what they have to say. In addition to that, JD Vance, just destroyed Vance, just dreadful Vance, the justified disgust Vance. I don't know what you want to call him. The people don't like him. People don't like him. And everywhere he go, he leads destruction. He visit the Pope die. He go to Pakistan and India. Now Pakistan and India bombing each other. Everywhere he go, he's just dreadful, just destructive, a terrible human being. But his brother was running for office in Cincinnati, because remember, he's from Ohio, and his brother was running for office in Cincinnati. I guess it's a half. I don't know if it's a half brother, because JD Vance has changed his name not once, not twice, but I believe 3 times he has changed his names multiple times, and he landed on JD Vance as his chosen I don't know why, but that's where he's at. But his brother's name is Corey Bowman. I believe JD Vance's last name used to be Bowman, but now it is Vance. And he said he was going to help his brother. He went to Cincinnati to stump for his brother. He campaigned for his brother. He was like, my brother. Oh, I don't have a good voice for JD Vance. Let me just do a traditional white guy voice. My brother is great, and you need to vote for my brother. Sorry, every time I say my brother now, I hear Mufasa in my head. But basically, JD Vance went to campaign for his brother. He was all up and down in Cincinnati, talking to the people, excited about getting his brother elected. Child, he's just dreadful. And he just destroyed his brother's chances of becoming the mayor of Cincinnati, because not only did his brother get whooped, his brother got mollywopped and only came in with 11.9%. So shout out to all of the Americans who understand what time it is and who are not here for just dreadful Vance's actions in any way, shape, or form. So sorry, Corey. You're not going to do well. And so that's what's happening with JD Vance. And I just want to talk about one last person. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about this next one tomorrow. But Sean Boston, the Real World Duffy. Now, for those of you who remember The Real World when MTV used to actually have music on, you know The Real World was a cultural phenomenon. It created a situation where like people were paying more attention to MTV than like actual news, child. There was a time when BET, MTV, VH1, remember that? Where there was actually music videos, and they had this reality show. This is back in the early days of reality show. I know a lot of you don't realize this, but many of us grew up having never seen a reality show until we were adults, right? And so I'm one of them. And Real World, I saw that when I was in high school. Anyway, point being, Real World was this show, and I think it might still even be on, but it basically took people from all across the country who did not know each other, who would live in this house. And it was a beautiful house, and it was like, they worked together, do projects together. Usually they would end up fighting. There'd be a lot of fighting. But Sean Real World Boston Duffy is now in charge of our transportation. This is a problem. Now, I do not know if Sean Duffy has the same sort of allegations and concerns about him being a whole ass alcoholic like Peter's on Mama Say He's Trash Hegseth. However, Sean Duffy is not bright, and Sean Duffy does not know things. I believe he too came out of central casting he was a congressman at one point. He served a little bit of time, but basically under his watch, remember how they fired all the FAA, the Federal Aviation Agency workers? They got rid of the air traffic controllers, and the day that Donald Trump was inaugurated, Elon Muskrat had the head of the FBA fired, or basically forced him to resign, because the FAA had just told Elon Muskrat that they were going to be under investigation because Starlink was skeeting all of its auto parts across the sky, because his penis-shaped rockets kept exploding in the air and causing people who lived in the Caribbean and on the eastern seaboard to have to duck and dodge from all this material that was skeeted out of his explosion. So the Federal Aviation Agency had told Elon Muskrat, we're going to have to investigate you. You can't fly this no more because your shit be exploding, and then people all across the world got to now duck and dodge from the materials that be exploding out of your aircraft. Elon Muskrat ain't like that. So the first thing that happened when Donald Trump is getting inaugurated is they got rid of the head of the FAA. Child, we don't have planes falling out the sky ever since. It's been more people dying from death and destruction from these airlines than have been under any other administration in their first 100 days. That's what they should have been talking about in their first 100 days. How many people done died falling out the damn sky, rolling on the tarmac and bumping into other planes? That's what they should have been talking about in their first 100 days. However, it's gotten much worse, because any of you who have been paying attention to what's happening out in Newark, New Jersey, where the air traffic controllers are like, don't fly out of here. Avoid Newark. Don't come to Newark. And not because, I love the city of Newark. The city of Newark reminds me so much of Brooklyn. I love it. I love what Mayor Ross Baraka is doing in Newark. Shout out to him as he attempts to run for governor for the state of New Jersey. But Newark Airport, which is under the leadership of the Federal Aviation Agency, is sort of been ground zero between them and DC Reagan, has been sort of ground zero for all of the explosive, pun intended, happenings that are taking place in the airlines. The airport has been shut down in some way, shape, or form as it pertains to flights for United in particular, but flights generally, so much so that there was a 90-second period where air traffic controllers had absolutely no contact with the planes that were in the sky, in the air. I want you to think about that. You are flying around, and your only ability to know where to land, do I bank right? Do I bank left? Your only ability to know that is because of the communication that you are engaged with the people on the ground. Well, child, the people on the ground couldn't talk to them. The people on the ground could not hear them. There was a whole ass 90-second period where it was just planes, just flying. It's just vibes. just flying in vibes. And that's what it was. And so you had air traffic controllers who left, took trauma leave. They were like, and they were, think about it. You've got the lives of thousands of people in your hands, and then like your shit don't work. Like you got to do you power down? Do you hard reboot? Like, how do you get your air traffic control? And then here goes Sean, real world Boston Duffy, the head of our transportation system, on Fox News every 15 minutes. And I don't know if they gave him a makeup studio the way that they give to Pete Hegseth in the Pentagon, but he always stayed beat with a fresh beat and always ready to go on Fox News. I'm like, dog, if you would spend more time at the freaking FAA instead of on camera with your colleagues, your previous colleagues, maybe half these planes would be falling out the sky. Then the Fox News host asked him like, well, what's happening? Why don't you know? When Fox is turning on former Fox hosts to ask them why you don't know the thing that you are in charge of, that's when you know it's bad. So we have multiple examples today of just the foolishness of what happens when you put people in positions of power who are not qualified, who do not have any meritorious deserving whatsoever, and they are simply there because they are white, they are entitled, they are incompetent. And if you got a flight coming in and out of Newark, which I typically love to fly in and out of, very nice airport, manageable, not quite as big as LaGuardia, it's not as janky as JFK. Well, I shouldn't say janky, it's JFK. JFK is getting expensive. Unfortunately, I ain't flying in or out of Newark no time soon until the FAA is able to get that together. And I hope you all are taking steps as well. But what does all of this mean? You need to be calling your elected officials. Who is holding the hearings on what's happening at the Federal Aviation Agency? Who is holding the hearings on what's happening with these planes just rolling on into the sea and don't nobody seem to know why? Where are the hearings? Where's the investigations? That's the information that we need to know. And right now, what you need to know is we got to go to commercial break. We have Representative Grace Ming, who's going to be joining us. We are continuing our outreach to elected officials, not because they are by default leaders, but because by being in those positions, they are responsible to us. And I'm so grateful when our electeds are able to spend some time giving us some insight into what's going on. So we are going to get ready to go to commercial break. Bye, you Instagram. See y'all later. Bye, YouTube. Appreciate y'all. See y'all later. And Urban View, it's back to just you and I. But before we go,